The community is created in the experience that we have as we negotiate our way through the place on a daily basis. So we stop to notice what those experiences are, and then we start to think about how we want those experiences to be in the future. Here in Scotland, you have an opportunity to have all the players in the room at the same time. You can have people with serious and large responsibilities in the Scottish executive, for example, sitting down with people from a local community, with people from the local universities, and so on. So I think there's a real opportunity to get all of the system into the room. I think you've got an opportunity to get everybody around the table, and that it's easier for you potentially to do that than it is for us in the States. It's hard for us to get to the governor or the state cabinet, let alone the national cabinet. So this is a real opportunity. I also notice the extent to which Scots love their home place and love being Scots. The pride in not just local communities, but the pride in this sense of being Scottish. And I think I'm seeing that people are asking questions about what does this mean, especially since your new executive and your new parliament. What does it mean to be Scottish? What kind of future do we want to create for ourselves? So I see this sense, I get this sense of thinking together about what's the Scotland that we want to create in the future. How do we honour our history, but also how do we move beyond some of the ways in which that history has limited us? I think that's a real opportunity in Scotland, and what I see is a lot of open thinking, more creative thinking than I see sometimes in the States these days, where we're very much focused on scarcity. We've got global challenges, and one regeneration question is how do we address global challenges at the local level? How do we address water? How do we address food? How do we address energy at the local level? And so creative regeneration has to begin to address these questions at all levels, from the local community level right across to the national level. So one might ask, for different parts of Falkirk, different parts of Glasgow, what can we be growing here? What energy can we be producing here? How can we harness this wind from the meadow? So this energy future that we want to create has to be looked at the local level as well as at the national level. Clearly there are projects that are going to require national investment in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Scotland. But at the local level, we can be growing a lot of our own food. We could be managing a lot of our own water. We can be generating a certain amount of energy. Or at a minimum, we can be making our existing buildings more energy efficient. The River Carron, for a long time, just an industrial highway, just as the rivers in Pittsburgh were industrial highways for the steel mills. And now, here, thanks to the Helix project, there's an opportunity to think about the Carron in a different way, to think about this water, this resource that's been, in a way, right by the community. In Pittsburgh, we have water, big rivers right under our noses, so to speak, for many years. But we haven't related to them, we haven't had a lot of access to them, in part because they were simply viewed as industrial highways. So the Helix is important because it creates an opportunity for us to think about how we relate to the river in a different way. What kind of new relationships, economic, social and cultural relationships we can create with the waterways and with the landscapes around us. In Pittsburgh too, our mighty rivers were simply industrial highways. The water was taken to fuel the steel mills. The coal was taken, made into coke to fuel the steel mills. And the water itself, the river, simply just became part of the production process for steel. Now we're thinking about relating to that water in a different way. Since the collapse of the steel industry, the health of the water itself has begun to improve. And we're now thinking about how the water helps to shape the city, that in fact our neighbourhoods are part of a riparian zone, that's been there and that evolved over millennia, indeed over millions of years. So we're looking at creating a different kind of future for Pittsburgh that says we're an evolving city, and we're evolving now more in tune with this land and this landscape, that we've only lost sight of our landscape for maybe about 100 or 200 years. And we're now getting back in touch with that landscape to look at how we create our future. So it happens over time, during which time people are involved in an ongoing way. And things are being produced, products are being produced, projects are being produced, and people are involved at all levels. Sometimes it'll be 5 people, sometimes it'll be 50 or 100, but it's over time this engagement takes place. And even as a project begins, for example, we're about to redo a park space in conjunction with local neighbours. This is the first physical project that will emerge from the Greenprint. And even as we're doing that, this engagement will continue as people engage with that park. I picked a jogging film. Well, first of all, there's the hair. You've got to like that hair. But there's something quirky in the film from the 70s that sort of posits jogging as this new fad that people go to a stadium to engage in. It's sort of a strange thing, this cult from the US, you know, jogging. And what's interesting to me about that is now, when I walk around Falkirk area or walk around Edinburgh, I bump into joggers all the time and don't notice them. So we walk out of our homes in the morning, we walk down the street, and people are jogging past us, and we don't really notice them. It's just part of the landscape. So something that was a fad and a newfangled thing as recently as the late 70s is now just part and parcel of what we see when we walk around our neighborhoods, so we don't really notice it anymore. So there's been a new kind of thinking. The idea of jogging has sort of infected us, infected our culture, permeated our culture. So now we think nothing of joggers about the place. This is where I think the link is to creative regeneration. We're starting to think in new and different ways and apply that thinking. And right now, it may seem like a little bit of a fad or a newfangled way of doing business, but there's no reason why it can't be part and parcel of our thinking at all levels and in all systems, so that much bigger investments from public sector and private sector are supporting this new way of thinking.